A fourth Port Authority employee is sent home today. This latest termination was confirmed by Interim Director Joseph Woods in a media statement, and it follows 3 other terminations at the authority in the last 2 weeks. In his statement, Mr. Woods says the terminations were in line with a standard clause permitting termination without cause upon the giving of a certain notice period. As for the reasons, he says, quote, "The Port Authority is not prepared to discuss staffing issues in public and will not be drawn into a public debate over it. In the interest of efficiency, the Port Authority has had to restructure its resources to meet its challenges and to provide the necessary services to meet customer expectations." Meanwhile, Georgetown Central MLA Kenneth Bryan joins us live in the studio. He's been raising some questions about the operations at the authority. Kenneth, let's just start with this. What do you kind of see here that you're saying something doesn't seem right?
Well, for one, the employees that have been let go have been new employees that were hired by the now suspended director. So it seems as if there's a movement to undermine everything that he has done so far. If that is the case, they have to be clear about that and say so. But the biggest problem for me here, Kevin, is this clause that they keep on referring to, which is in the contract of, if not all, a very large amount of people who work for the port, which basically says, I can just give you a notice and let you go without reason. I think Caymanians particularly need more security of tenure than that. So basically you have some contracts say 30 days, some say 3 months, some say 6 months. And basically what they're saying in the director outlined that quite clearly that, listen, you agreed to this, we agreed to it, you signed the contract saying I don't have to give you a reason, just give you the notice, pay you the amount of money that is necessary for it, and you got to go. So at any stage, the port director can say, you know what, Kevin, I don't like the way you look today. You're gone. And he doesn't have to give any reason whatsoever. I don't think Caymanians should be under that type of scenario. And we have a large group of persons there. So right now, I'm worried for anybody who works for the port because they're at the whim of this contract. And I don't think it goes hand in hand with anything that any kind of company or authority that the government owns. This is the people's port, and you're treating the people like that. I don't think it's right, and I think it has to be addressed.
You think that these people that were terminated are somehow, I don't know, paying the price for, you know, investigations that have happened in the past at the Port Authority, or do you think something malicious is happening here?
I think something is going on that they don't want to be honest with. I think there's some, like I spoke to the acting director, I called him and I said, are these your decisions? Because there's this whispers of board involvement. And he won't answer the question. He won't say that it's his decision. There's nobody else's decision other than his. And what's the rationale behind it? You had people moving from other companies to come to the port and give themselves as an asset to the port, had a good career, longevity in other companies, now to just be let go. For what reason? And not only that, with the island being so small, they're wording it as terminations. And people will eventually find out who these individuals are. And it's not a fault of their own. Now, it seems to be some discrepancy as trying to take out the old hirings of the past director. And if that is the case, they have to say so. And if that is also the case, they have to say, well, why is he still on suspension? Because obviously you didn't agree with his hiring practices. So why is he still on suspension? So you can't have him, but then take out everything that he decided to do in respect to the direction of the port. Something is wrong. They need to be clear about it, and people have a right to be concerned about it, particularly the rest of the employees on the port. I don't like the way it's set up. That clause shouldn't be in any Caymanian's contract, period.
So, Mr. Bryan, the public authorities legislation, would that sort of be supersede whatever the company's contract says to the employees?
Well, I'm in the process of examining that right now, and I hope, and I actually put some questions to the minister in charge, the Honorable Deputy Premier Moses Kukurno, which I hope that he plans to answer it when we go to the BRAC, because I want to know how many people are in these type of clauses, and does it adhere to the practices of the civil service, because we know that they're supposed to be in line with the authorities, and some authorities are doing different things. At the end of the day, authorities and government-owned companies are Caymanian assets. So if Caymanians are working there, I expect them to be treated in the appropriate way, and I'm really worried about the employees there.
But just going off of transparency, is it really any different? Just because it's a public authority or statutory authority, do they need to be held to a higher level of transparency when it comes to hirings and firings than anybody in the private sector? For instance, my boss could terminate me, and as long as it's within the labor law, he doesn't owe an explanation to anybody, but that's a private sector. in the public sector, do you feel like they do owe a greater amount of explanation?
100%. Okay. 100%, because it's the people's assets. The Port Authority is owned by the people of the Cayman Islands. It's owned by the government. It's run differently than the civil service, but it's a Caymanian asset. And as a result, if Caymanians are working for it, they should be able to have a say through their representatives on how that structure should be formed. I'm telling you right now, I don't think that you can find one port employee that doesn't feel nervous about that clause, and almost 90% of them have that clause within their contract, that at any point they could be gone, they have mortgages, they have responsibilities, there need to be more security of tenure, and I'm really, really worried about it.
Do you know if all the people involved are Caymanian?
Yes.
They are, okay. Because you brought that point up several times,
Yes.
so I just wanted to clarify that that is the case.
I don't come here fighting for non-Caymanians.
Fair enough.
I'm here to fight for Caymanians.
Right.
Do you know the gender of the employees?
Female and male. And very senior positions as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with restructuring, but at the end of the day, the people, if there was faults or mistakes that have happened previously, it's not the fault of these persons who were hired.
Right.
You have to take every step possible to make sure that their lives continue and they're not at fault. Cayman is a very small place. I think there's things they could have done, and this excuse that they're using with this clause is not good enough in my opinion.
And you would, again, maybe there is a very good reason for the terminations, but I think, to your point, the lack of transparency maybe is what's alarming. If there is a good reason, you don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of what exactly it was, but you can say, you know, it was a performance-related decision, etc. Right,
Yeah,
say something.
The people deserve to know.
Right. Thank you very much, Kenneth.
No
really
problem.
appreciate your time.